So, brothers, we have seen in the last classes about the church and the kingdom, and we began to speak a little bit about the interrelationship between them and the meaning they have in relation to Jesus. We saw that church is not very much paid attention to by Jesus. On the contrary, it is the kingdom. And later on, when the church is institutionalized, it is no more the kingdom that is more important in the documents and so on, but the church. And the church has been in the center of attention of the Christians for a long time. Church as the orientation for all our mission work, expansion of the church, building about the church and so on. Now we have come to a balanced situation where the kingdom of God is the center. Church is by itself not the goal of the mission work. The expansion of the kingdom in the world is the task for which the church is an instrument. So kingdom is primary, church is subordinate as an instrument of it. Now this understanding in the mind of the people will enable them to work for the church, to continue the work of the church in their own lives. What is the impression they have, the people have? What is the image that they have? That is very much important. An image is something which helps you to plan your action, plan your work, and motivates your work. Supposing you have an image of yourself as a good student, you will work to justify that image. Work well, study well in the school, in the class, and so on. Supposing your image is of a bad student or not good in studies, then your image will work in your studies. It will be reflected. In the same way, the image of the church that we have, it will reflect in our work and activities. So what are the images that we have? We are just going to enumeration of that. Before that, the images of the church, there are plenty in the Bible, and we have, the council has used a lot of them, and we take some of them. In the council, major images that were used, we will in this way treat, and we will see how it has been successful or unsuccessful in enthusing a people. One of the images of the council is the title of the council document itself, Lumen Gentium, light to the nations. You know, the first two words of the Vatican documents are given as the title. So Lumen Gentium is the starting line of the document, and it is also an image. The image is like a very vast kind of light. Think of a ship filled with lights shining at night, and this ship is moving through the ocean of ages towards God's kingdom. And there are other small ships which see the light of the ship going in front and orient themselves towards the kingdom. This is one image. The real light is Christ, but here the church is reflecting Christ's light. So church is in this way light to the nations in that sense. So the ship, the church, becomes a guiding post or a guide for the other small ships. Other small ships are the other small religions. So in this image we have a positive relationship with other religions. Other religions are not enemies of the church. On the contrary, they are also going in the same line. And so church is full, a light guiding, the light of Christ guiding it, and that light of Christ becomes the guide for the whole world. So salvation through Christ, that idea, and the church as necessary for salvation, all these ideas come to be expressed in this image. That is one image. Before that, there used to be another image. In the earlier missionary work, that was the basis of that. That image was that of the bark of Peter. Bark, I mean a ship. Bark of Peter has got long nets, which they have, the bark sends down, and the net moves along with the bark, and fish are caught in the net. It is more or less like this, if you want. So this is a ship or boat. Then they put a net like this. Then it has got a drag net. It's called a drag net. So the net has got a portion like this. So when the ship moves forward like this, all the fish here will be caught. And then they lift up the net and put the fish into the bark. That was the idea of bark of Peter. That image means that. And that image made people, or the people's missionary commitment led to the image, or this image led to the people's missionary commitment, either way. Those who are caught in the bark are saved. Those who are not caught by the drag net and subsequently put in the bark are lost. So the church is the means of salvation, an exclusive means of salvation. This net is the means by which people get saved. So that is a different kind of picture in contrast to the Lumen Gentium. Lumen Gentium is tolerant and has a dialogal attitude towards other religions. After we have this image, church becomes more dialogal. Earlier image was slightly different. Then for the society, church has got a role to play. I will speak further about the images later on, but this idea of the church and its position in society, that is something which I would like to point your attention to. We have got in society different agents or different sections. Business, there is then government, then there is labor, and all the different elements of the society, they work together. If labor stops its work, then the whole society is blocked. If the government stops its work, the whole society is lost, especially in a situation like the COVID-19 situation. It is the government and government's initiative that actually helps prevent coronavirus from decimating the population. If they were doing nothing, the whole country would have been finished by the epidemic. So then business, if business people stop their work, nothing will be available for the people. So all these different functions, different aspects of society must function in collaboration with one another. And the church is also an element. Religion is also considered an element. So what is the role of religion? The role of religion is keeping peace and keeping the status quo. Whatever may be happening in the society, in the help of, from the point of view of the, let us say, laborers, they are asking for more wages, and the struggle is taking place, and the society is not functioning very smoothly. There is trouble. Then the church is given the task, or church should function in such a way that peace comes back into the society. How can the peace come back? By making the workers to stop their struggle, to stop demanding for higher wages and so on. That is one way. And that used to be literally taken, and the church was literally functioning in that way in the beginning. All the Sunday sermons and preachings will be about holiness and about obedience, about discipline, and about obeying the laws of the world. What message does the church give to the people? Please obey, don't protest, there need to be peace, then love and all that. In the context of a social struggle, what is the meaning of love? What is the meaning of discipline? What is the meaning of peace? Don't go for all this trouble. Don't go for all this disturbance of the community. That is what the church is saying. That is what we all want also. The church people, the priests and so on. So the function of the church is here, keeping peace and tranquility in society. A society which can be disturbed. When one element is not fitting well and doing its function as determined by the overall planning of the society. So in such a situation, what will be the situation of the people struggling for justice? They will not get church's support. People struggling, wanting for justice, are raising their wages, the prices of things have gone high, and they want wages, and government, the owners will not give wages simply a take. It must be demanded. It must be asked for. Only then they will give the wages. So, on whose side is the church then? On the side of the laborers or on the side of the owners? On the side of the owners. That is the role of the church, according to the society. So, the church must be kept in society must be kept in equilibrium, and church has got a role to play. So, church is important. Even when other people say, oh, there is a secularism and there is no God and atheism and so on, this function is performed by the church to a great extent. Now there are also other ideologies. This is how the society has given a place to the church, for the church. And the message of Jesus, message of equality, message of justice, message of universal love, will it come through this church? It will not come. We will be preaching automatically. Nobody need to tell you. Nobody need to tell us that the struggle is going on, they should stop the struggle and so on. We will automatically preach against the people who are fighting for justice. So that kind of a function, we must see self-critically. Are we performing that function? Are we performing the function in such a way that justice and love and peace and equality develop in society? So these are the questions that we have to ask. One is the expectation of the society from the religion. The second one, the self-image of the society, of religion, of the church, let us say. Church's idea of its function in the world. At the moment, we have got the situation where the society has modified the church. Church has become a means of domesticating all troubles. Church has become legitimizing the existing situation. Church has become justifying whatever is happening. And the church has come on the side of the status quo, the existing situation. That should not change. So who benefits from the existing situation? The owners or the laborers? Clear. Owners. So the church today is on the side of the owners. This is a question whether we have to ask in relation to the ideal of the church. Would Jesus be pleased with this kind of a functioning of the church? Has he intended the church to function? In what way has he intended the church to function? To be keeping peace and no trouble, no problem at all, so that those who are suffering in injustice and rotting in troubles, they continue, and those who are on the top will continue enjoying their profits of injustice. Certainly, Jesus would not have been for that. But then today the church is apparently in this situation. saw a reformation and a change of the church. You imagine, I'm sure that you will evaluate the church in this way. There is need for the church to be different. The church has to be more Christ-like. And that is why we are looking into the whole Bible and so on. The kingdom of God, church is a servant of the kingdom of God. Church is not the servant of the powerful in the society. But then the church is functioning as the supporters of the powerful in society, powers that be. So we have to examine the way we function in society, the way we make our sermons. Sermons, we make all kinds of stories and make people happy and make people to forget themselves in experience of transcendence and all that. Is that according to the will of Jesus? That is a question we have to ask, and how we have to change. We have to ask. And the church will continue in the world as long as church reinvents itself according to the situations. That is a statement of Leonard of Boff. You know, he was in the Latin American church. There they had the original idea of basic churches, or the small church, basic church, BCC, and so different words. So these were dynamic expressions of the demands of the church. The church was there on the side of the poor, church of the poor. The existing church of the earliest time, let us say, there can see 2-3 stages. Earliest church was composed of the poor people, and so the interest for which the church would work is the interest of the poor. Then with the change in the time of Constantine in the 3rd, 4th century, the whole powerful people became part of the church. So ordinary people in the world also, they converted and became Christians. In Rome and in Europe, there were so many small religions and different small cultures, and they all had their way of worshipping and so on. But when Christianity was taken by Constantine, then the other people who were under him, the lords, they felt it is nice to be joining his religion. And those who were underneath, they felt, oh, it is nice to be belonging to the religion of the masters. Whole world became Christian. And so existence and continuance of the world, situation of the church, both are same. Continuation of the world in all its forms of class struggle, injustice, that became identified so much with the church that church became supporters of the status quo. But there were some who were opposing that. There were protests, prophetic. And these prophetic movements are the religious congregations. Those took place. Francis was a prophetic figure. Before that, Benedict and so on. They went away from the affluent group of people expressing their opposition to the way the church is moving, and they went and lived alone in the desert. People gathered there, they were considered great people, and then Benedictine order, Augustinian order, and different congregations, religious congregations were born. You know the story perhaps. Then the 13th century, this model was not sufficient according to the time. Then comes the prophetic model of Francis and Dominic. They are mendicants. They have no property, whereas the Benedictines and the Dominicans and Augustinians had a lot of land, hundreds and hundreds of acres of estate under their care, and they were only working on the land and living by that. But they had no personal ownership. Personally, individually, they were all poor people. So poverty was emphasized in that way. Mendicants emphasized poverty in a more radical way. No ownership at all, but live from begging, from relation to others. So that made a big change. Now the Franciscans have become just like any other congregations. There is no radical prophetic move from the part of the Franciscans. We are also status quo supporters to a great extent. So we have to reinvent ourselves in our situation. We have to re-energize. We have to become a Franciscan congregation in the real sense, prophetic group. Instead of that, we become established parts of the establishment. From our congregation, there are bishops, there are popes and bishops and so on. They will be interested in the status quo continuing. So that was not according to the intention of Francis. But then we became this way a supporter of the status quo. And now that is the second stage. First stage is the church of the poor. Then second stage, the church of the powerful and rich, against which some prophetic movements are taking place. Now the third stage is basically the stage of the poor, especially in the Latin American situation. The poor have embraced the gospel, and they have found in the gospel riches, treasures, which gives them strength and power to stand against oppression and work for get their demand of justice, to be able to live in dignity and respect. So that has taken place in the last few years. Now that also has become more or less a past. The liberation movement has now become subsided. So in this context, Leonardo Boff says, church will continue as it emerges again into life and the church revives itself. The people have to decide. The church's existence, according to him, is because of the decision of the apostles in the beginning. Apostles and the disciples together, in the light of the elements that Jesus had established, that is the Eucharist, preaching, and apostleship. And all these elements were taken, and the disciples established the church at that time. Same way, re-establishment of the church, reinventing. A reinventing of the church has taken place with the basic ecclesial communities. And he says the church will continue as long as it is ready to reinvent itself according to the situation. So in the Latin American situation, church had reinvented itself. In the Indian situation, we are still remaining a tail of the missionary church. We have not developed ourselves as a self-confident church with a self-confident theology and our own perception of the world around us. Church has not yet successfully done that. Now movements are going, and there are promising movements in the church, in the Indian church, where things are going to be different. And the invitation is open to you all to reinvent the church, to make it powerful, not to allow it to be continuing in the same way as the status quoist supporters. One such initiative that is taking place is called the Yeshu Bhakta movement. Perhaps you may have heard about this. Yes. The problem in India is the exclusivity of the Catholic Church, Christian Church. We say only Christians are going to be saved, or salvation is only through Christ, and you come and get baptized. So that creates actually cleavage in the society, division in the society, and the people are excluded from their homes. That situation is bad. Church is causing division in society. Now, in response to this situation, new idea, new development, new initiative came. What is important is discipleship of Jesus. Be Yeshu Bhakta. Live life related to Jesus. So in every way they live like Christians, but they don't change the religion. They don't become Christians by baptism. They are Hindus or people of other religions, but they are disciples of Jesus. That is given an importance. That is a very brilliant idea which can be successfully implemented in our Indian situation. So basically, church will reinvent itself. The church as itself, as it is continuing, the status quo is church. may not be very much in agreement with what Jesus originally intended. And perhaps many of the things have gone against the intention of Jesus, so much so that the present Pope, he has begun to say things according to the Latin American situation where he was living and where he knows, and he knows the place of the role of the church and the role of the other, the today's society, and how today's capitalist society is a killer structure. Today many people are dying, 800 people are dying, children are dying every day because of hunger. Hunger comes because of capitalist society, capitalism. And so the Pope condemns that. Capitalism is such. Capitalism kills. And many other different expressions of opposition with the gospel, which the present society has, Pope has brought out. As a result, there is some chance of church emerging new, church reinventing itself in our present context. In India, this special thing has already been taking place, and we have to see how the church is going to reinvent itself. Church is going to be reborn. That depends very much on us, especially you priests who develop convictions and theological positions today in the light of what is taking place in the society today. If we take a position based on our Pope's invitation, things will be different. A new church may emerge from our present situation. So the struggle for the kingdom will continue, and the church will be relevant, more relevant, hopefully, in the future, if you are ready for the struggle. Thank you.